Okay, imagine this for a second. You've got a massive film, huge star, Kamal Haasan, right? It's cleared by the censors, ready to roll out across the country. Everything's set.
Yeah, big release planned.
Then, bam. In one entire state, Karnataka, the cinemas stay dark. The film's just not showing. And not because of some official ban, some legal ruling.
No, nothing like that initially.
It's because a few groups got really angry about something the star said, completely unrelated to the movie, and started making threats, serious threats.
Which is a pretty wild situation when you think about it.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into exactly that, this frankly startling controversy around the Tamil film Thug Life and why it effectively got shut out of Karnataka.
We've been looking at how this all unfolded. There's the comment itself, the immediate backlash, some really interesting court decisions, and even how the fans reacted. It's quite a story.
Right. So our mission here is to really unpack this. How did one comment escalate into this de facto ban? What did the High Court say versus the Supreme Court? It's quite a contrast.
Oh, definitely.
And this fan reaction crossing state lines. Plus, what does it all tell us about, free speech versus maybe mob pressure, and who gets to decide what you see?
It really puts that conflict front and center, doesn't it? This whole idea of can a group effectively censor art through intimidation, even when it's legally approved?
Exactly. Okay, so let's trace it back. Because the weird thing, or maybe the key thing, is this wasn't initially about the movie Thug Life at all.
Absolutely not. The flashpoint, the moment it all kicked off, was May 24th, 2025. It happened at the film's audio launch in Chennai.
Big event, I imagine.
Yeah. And Kamal Haasan was on stage with Shiva Rajkumar, who's a massive, really respected star in Kannada cinema. And they're talking, and Haasan makes his comment about language.
And the specific words were reported as, your language, Kannada, was born out of Tamil.
Now, the context seems to suggest he maybe meant it as like a gesture of shared roots, a cultural connection. But, well, how it was meant and how it was received were worlds apart.
Clearly, because the reaction from some pro-Kannada groups was immediate and pretty furious.
Yeah, groups like the Karnataka Film Chamber of Commerce, KFCC, and the Canada Rakshana Vidaik, they were very vocal, very quickly.
And what was their take?
They saw it as an insult, plain and simple. An insult to Canada's heritage, its unique identity. And the response was just as blunt. They demanded Kamal Haasan apologize.
Okay, a demand for an apology. That happens. But it didn't stop there, did it?
Not even close. They
Yeah.
basically said, no apology, no thug life in Karnataka. The film is, quote, persona non grata here. That's strong language.
Persona non grata for a movie.
Because it's something the actor said.
And they weren't just talking. There were reports, pretty worrying ones, of effigies of Hassan being burned, and crucially, direct threats to torch cinemas if they dared to screen the film.
Wow. Okay, so real threats of violence and arson?
Exactly. And that, understandably, had a massive chilling effect. Cinema owners across Karnataka looked at that situation, potential violence, serious damage to their property, and they blinked.
Can't blame them, really. The risk was just too high. So they pulled back. They decided not to screen Thug Life. And just like that, this huge film, fully certified by the CBFC, ready for its nationwide release on June 5th, it was effectively banned in an entire state. Not by law, but by fear.
It's just the scale of it feels off, Like you said, a comment totally separate from the film leads to this. It's like banning a chef's restaurant because you disagreed with his views on, I don't know, pineapple on pizza.
It does feel disproportionate, yeah.
Yeah.
The reaction seems way out of step with the initial comment, whatever the interpretation.
So obviously, with the film blocked, this had to go legal.
Right. The producers weren't just going to write off a whole state. We're talking Rajkamal Films International, Hassan's company. It's a big budget film, apparently around 300 crore.
300 crore. Okay, yeah, they're not letting that slide.
So on June 2nd, they went to the Karnataka High Court.
And what were they asking for? Just let us show the movie.
Essentially, yeah. They wanted the court to order police protection for the theaters. They argued, look, this film is certified by the CBFC. It has the right to be shown. We just need security to do it safely because of these threats.
Seems straightforward enough, but the High Court's response, that was interesting.
It really was. Justice M. Nagaprasanna's handling of it on June 3rd definitely caused a stir. The court apparently questioned Haasan, asking things like, are you a historian or a linguist, to comment on language origins.
Okay.
And the judge was reportedly quite critical of Haasan not apologizing, calling it ego. The suggestion was pretty clear. A single apology could have resolved the situation.
An apology to the people making the threats.
That's how many interpreted it. And the court's decision reflected that. They basically put the release on hold, telling the filmmakers to have a dialogue with the KFCC first.
So, hold on. The court is telling the victim of threats to negotiate with the group connected to those threats, and suggesting an apology is the way forward.
That's certainly how it looked to a lot of observers. It raised serious questions about whether the court was prioritizing appeasement over the fundamental right to screen a certified film without facing intimidation. It felt like a step back from protecting free expression.
Okay, yeah. But the story doesn't end there. It escalates.
Yeah,
Significantly.
massively. Because this wasn't just seen as a local film dispute anymore. By June 13th, a citizen in Bengaluru, M. Mahesh Reddy, filed a public interest litigation, a PIL, directly with the Supreme Court of India.
A PIL. So arguing this is a matter of public interest beyond just the film company.
Exactly. His argument was powerful. He called it an extrajudicial ban driven by mobs and claimed it represented a breakdown of constitutional machinery because the state wasn't upholding the law against these threats.
Strong stuff. And the Supreme Court, how did they react?
Their response on June 17th from Justices Prashant Kumar Mishra and Manmohan was like a thunderclap, completely unequivocal.
Okay, give us the highlights.
They basically said, absolutely not. Their words were stark. Cannot allow mob vigilante to take over streets. They affirmed very clearly that once a film has CDFC certification, it has the right to be shown everywhere, period. No exceptions for local protests or threats.
Wow.
They directly address the threats, too. Putting people in fear, threat of burning theaters cannot be allowed. It was a full-throated defense of the rule of law over intimidation.
Did they address the Karnataka High Court's approach, the whole just apologize thing?
They did, and quite pointedly, they criticized that suggestion. Their stance was clear. If actor Kamal Haasan said something, let people debate it, but the film cannot be stopped from screening in theaters. Debate is fine, they said, but threats stopping illegal activity, unacceptable.
So a clear line drawn.
Absolutely. And they didn't just talk, they acted. They transferred the case entirely from the Karnataka High Court up to themselves. And then they gave the Karnataka state government just 1 day, 24 hours to come back with a concrete plan for how they would ensure the film could be released safely.
1 day. That's putting the pressure on.
Immense pressure. It was the highest court in the land saying, enough. The law applies. Protect the screening. Mob rule doesn't get to win.
Okay, so that's the legal track. But while all this was going on in the courts, the fans, they weren't just sitting around waiting, were they?
No, not at all. This is actually a pretty amazing part of the story. On June 5th, the day Thug Life was supposed to release everywhere.
The day it didn't release in Karnataka.
Exactly. So what did the fans do? Over 1,000 of them, reports say, got organized.
Organized how?
They traveled. They literally got in cars, buses, even on motorbikes, and drove across the state border into Tamil Nadu, about 42 kilometers to the town of Hosur.
Just to see the movie?
Just to see the movie. The theaters in Hosur were apparently swamped. People described it like a mini festival, just packed with fans from Karnataka who refused to be denied.
That's incredible dedication. Were there specific stories?
Yeah, there were a couple highlighted. One guy, Nadu Kumar, apparently had sunk a lot of money, like 20 lakh, into organizing fan celebrations in Bengaluru that got canceled.
Yeah.
He was part of this exodus to Hosur.
Wow, instead of just losing the money, he went to see the film.
And another story about a daily wage worker, M. Ravi, also from Bengaluru. He was apparently so determined, he traveled to Hosur and watched the movie twice on the same day.
Twice. Okay, that's commitment.
It really is. And it's more than just being a fan, isn't it? It was a clear statement. It was like they were saying, you can try and stop us, but we'll find a way. It showed the demand was there. And that passion for cinema wasn't going to be blocked by a border or by threats.
Yeah, a real grassroots pushback. So, stepping back from the day-to-day drama, what does this whole thug life situation really tell us? What are the bigger themes here?
Well, it definitely throws a spotlight on that constant tension, doesn't it? Between freedom of expression on one side and cultural sensitivities, pride in language or identity on the other.
Always a tricky balance.
Always. But maybe the even bigger takeaway here is the battle between the rule of law, the idea that processes like film certification matter and should be respected, versus the power of mob rule or vigilantism. When threats become the deciding factor, that's a dangerous path.
And the initial response, or lack thereof, from the Karnataka government seems key there.
It does. When the state authorities appear slow or reluctant to step in decisively to protect theaters, maybe arrest those making clear threats, it sends a message. It can inadvertently signal that, well, maybe making enough noise and issuing threats is an effective strategy.
Which is worrying.
Very. And that's why the Supreme Court's intervention felt so significant. It was like a system check, a reminder that, no, CBSC certification does mean something. Art doesn't need a mob's veto power after it's gone through the legal process.
And there was that concern about setting a precedent, the whole slippery slope idea.
Yes, exactly. If this kind of effective ban stands a ban achieved through pressure tactics over an off-screen comment, what stops it from happening elsewhere? You could easily imagine other groups in other states demanding bans on films, maybe even Canada films in Tamil Nadu or somewhere else, based on some perceived slight.
Yeah, it could quickly spiral.
It creates a climate of fear, a chilling effect for filmmakers and artists everywhere. They might start self-censoring, worried about provoking any group, anywhere.
And beyond the principles, there's cold, hard cash involved too, right? The economics of this can't be ignored.
Absolutely. This isn't just theoretical. There are major financial consequences.
We mentioned the budget earlier, 300 crore. That's a massive investment.
Huge. And losing a major market like Karnataka is a significant blow. Some industry analysts estimated the potential loss just from Karnataka could be somewhere in the region of 35 to 40 crore.
How did they figure that?
They were comparing it to Kamal Haasan's previous blockbuster, Vikram. That film apparently earned over 22 crore in Karnataka alone. So for a potentially bigger film like Thug Life, you could see how the losses would stack up quickly.
And it's not just the big producers, right? What about the local cinemas?
Exactly. Especially single-screen theaters. They rely heavily on these big event films, including popular Tamil movies, which often do really well with the audience in Karnataka. A sudden ban like this pulls the rug right out from under them financially.
Plus, the longer a film is blocked in one area while playing elsewhere.
Piracy becomes a massive issue. It just incentivizes illegal copies and streaming, which hurts everyone down the line, producers, distributors, exhibitors. It eats into the legitimate revenue stream.
So, yeah, big principles, but also big money at stake. Now, throughout all this, what about Kamal Haasan himself? How did he handle the pressure? Did he just apologize?
No, he didn't. He definitely stood his ground. He did send a letter to the KFCC.
Okay, and what did it say?
He clarified his comment, explained it came from a place of genuine affection for the Kannada film legend Dr. Rajkumar's family, and especially for Shiva Rajkumar, who was right there with him. He expressed regret that it was misunderstood.
Misunderstood, but not retracted or apologized for.
Exactly. He didn't offer a direct apology for the substance of the comment itself, and he was pretty public about his stance, too. He gave statements saying things like, "I believe in law and justice, not in appeasing threats."
So a defiant position. You could frame it as principled, standing up to pressure, or maybe stubborn.
It's definitely open to interpretation, isn't it? Was it the right call strategically? Hard to say. But it was certainly a clear refusal to back down when faced with demands backed by threats of violence. And maybe ironically, that kind of defiance, well, it does sort of echo the film's title, Thug Life, in a way.
Oh, maybe so.
Okay, so bringing us right up to the moment, based on the timeline ending around June 17th, where do things stand right now? The spotlight is intensely on the Karnataka state government. The Supreme Court has laid down the law, taken control of the case, and given them that tight 24-hour deadline to explain how they're going to ensure the film gets released safely.
So the next move is theirs.
Absolutely. And what they do next is critical. Will they fully comply, provide the necessary security, and facilitate the release? Or will there be more delays, more resistance? The outcome here feels like it will set a really important precedent for how these kinds of conflicts, art, expression, protest, threats are handled moving forward.
It really drives home how cinema, how art can become this arena where much bigger battles are fought, doesn't it? About identity, about freedom, about who gets to speak, who gets to watch, and how we deal with disagreement.
Yeah, the lines between entertainment and these fundamental societal questions get really blurry.
So, wrapping up our deep dive on this thug life situation, what are the main things that stick with you? For me, it's the fans' road trip. That's pretty unforgettable.
Definitely. That and the sheer clarity of the Supreme Court's message. Mobs don't get to override the law. That felt crucial.
And just the whole messy complexity of it. Cultural pride, freedom of speech, the power of threats. It's a lot tangled together.
I think maybe the core takeaway is needing to constantly distinguish between disagreeing with something, even strongly debating it, and resorting to intimidation and threats to silence it or shut it down. That's a line that seems increasingly tested.
It does make you wonder, right? We live in this world saturated with opinions. Everyone has a platform. How do we actually navigate these clashes over art or culture or history without just shutting everything down or, threatening to burn down the theater?
Yeah, it's a tough question. And this whole saga is just such a stark reminder that protecting free expression isn't some abstract idea. Sometimes it's incredibly concrete. Sometimes it just means making sure a movie, a legally certified movie, can actually play in a cinema without people fearing for their safety.
A really potent reminder. Lots to think about there. Okay, well, until the next deep dive, keep questioning, keep exploring these complicated issues. And maybe think twice before starting a linguistic debate at a movie launch.
My own advice.